Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
UFOs, a Flying Saucers Part 3. Contact Report 358.
As I saw, there are a lot of people over in the kitchen. So I will have to be on my guard.
Which should not be a problem for you. You can just turn on your device, which will automatically beam you into your ship when someone comes to the living room.
Regarding the luminous objects that light up, seem to hang in the air, seem to divide into several objects, move away from each other, approach each other again and merge again. The following can be explained. All the observers and witnesses of such sightings are deceived, because they are in no way extraterrestrial flying apparatuses or UFOs, as terrestrial people call the objects, which can be seen especially in many places in the USA and all over the world. The secret machinations of the responsible authorities and offices in the U.S. America are responsible for these appearances of these light objects. But this is to remain secret, not only for the American, but for the whole world population. For this reason, the paradox is given that the responsible authorities in the USA, on the one hand, deny the matter of the crash of an extraterrestrial flying object at Roswell and also elsewhere just as much as the secret machinations in Area 51, while on the other hand, everything is done to strengthen the belief of the population in extraterrestrial UFOs, namely by secret American and strongly luminous flying apparatuses flying around in all possible areas and becoming visible to the population. Of course, these are not always just test flights, but effective demonstration flights with all kinds of capers that normal terrestrial aircraft cannot perform. This also happens in the relationship that the flying objects light up like little suns, or suddenly split into several objects, which ultimately happens because several flat-flying apparatuses are coupled on top of each other and then simply detach from each other to drift away and then reunite. This creates the impression that several others would suddenly fly out of one object and then return to the mother object. This effect alone is enough for UFO believers to break out in jubilation and fall into the belief that the objects are extraterrestrial flying apparatuses, which they are in no way, because they are products that are secretly manufactured in the USA. Test flights of these objects, which reach very high speeds and also possess certain gravitational or anti-gravitational techniques, can be observed all over the world, but especially in the country of manufacture, the USA, as I explained earlier. To the secret machinations in this regard belong also still various others, which are to point out actions of extraterrestrials, like, for example, the alleged kidnappings of Earth people as well as the massacring of cattle, etc., by alleged extraterrestrial beings. The fact that hypnosis is also used for allegedly affected people, as it was the case with the fraudulent moon landing in 1969, should be absolutely clear for every reasonable person.
Contact Report 359.
But tell me, do you know anything about UFOs flying over Mexico on 5th March 2004? Please read this little newspaper article that appeared in the Tagesanzeiger today, 13th May. Note, see Wikipedia entry and the associated press release about this story.
We are aware of the matter through earthly news broadcasts and TV pictures, but we have no further knowledge of the incident, if it is indeed a fake and not a forgery. The moving pictures we know from TV broadcasts seem to me to be just as extremely peculiar as the strange formation of the round light objects, which simply appear flat and therefore cannot be spherical either. There are also no contours to be seen, as well as no other things that indicate that they could really have been materially solid objects. Nevertheless, I cannot exclude the possibility that they could have been bioorganic missiles of different dimensions, which, as you know, are harmless life forms from a neighboring dimension and which can usually only be photographed by infrared cameras or recorded on infrared film. By this I mean those bioorganic missiles that you could observe at different places in the world and that my father Svath has already pointed out to you. One last possibility could be considered. However, if you take into account the secret technical aircraft of the USA, which shield themselves from view and can therefore only be filmed with infrared cameras or seen with infrared vision devices. I very much doubt that the unknown aircraft in Mexico were extraterrestrial intelligence.
Contact Report 361.
Then I would like to ask you officially, what's the deal with all the UFO sightings in the US and South America? I know the answer, but we have only ever talked about them privately and not officially, so an official statement on your part would be important. Some time ago, dear American passive members were with us in the center, and the talk was also about these frequent UFO sightings in America, Mexico and South America. So I explained the facts of the matter, why so many people, often in groups, see UFOs that move, change their light intensity, appear in groups, unite and separate again, appear and disappear, etc.
I know your explanation, and it was also correct. The unknown flying objects that appear so frequently in the USA, in Mexico, and in various South American countries are in no way flying machines of extraterrestrial origin, but objects that correspond to an earthly technique. Specifically, these are usually various types of aircraft, which are constructed in secret bases in the USA and tested in the entire North, Central and South American airspace, as well as in other countries of the world, without the world public or the military and governments of foreign states having any knowledge of them. These are then the so-called UFOs, which are sighted everywhere in the airspace of the entire American continent, as well as elsewhere in the world. Apart from the secret U.S.-American aircraft, there are few others which do not belong to any state, but are constructed by other forces and can often be observed. Flying machines of extraterrestrial origin are extremely rare to observe because the Earth is far away from other inhabited worlds, so it does not often receive visits from beings from other worlds. This happens only extremely sporadically and therefore very rarely. So what can usually be observed in unknown flying? Objects around the world, and especially over the entire American continent, are not extraterrestrial unknown flying objects, but secret earthly flying machines of American and other origin. Excluded are, of course, our flying machines and surveillance missiles, which can, of course, be observed by attentive observers both day and night.
Contact Report 381.
What this man writes seems to me to be nonsensical, and not only because I consider the pictures to be manipulation in the way that they were taken at night or in a dark room with a photo camera, where a long exposure time was used to produce the blurred light spots, but also because the photo camera was moved when the exposure time was long. A very well-known act of falsifying such pictures, which are supposed to represent any UFOs. Besides this, it has to be said that since the time of our contacts with you, since 1942, we have controlled the airspace of Switzerland, but also of Germany until today very exactly, and could not register any such flying objects, which would have been of extraterrestrial origin on the one hand, and of this kind on the other hand. Seen to me, these are clearly artificial light sources which have been captured on film in the form I mentioned.
Something like that, I thought, because similar images were brought to me by Dr. Jonas from Vienna when he visited me in Hinwil in the early 70s. At that time, I went with him to Einsiedeln Abbey, where I could watch at close range how he took his ghost photos by setting the camera to a long exposure time and then moving the camera slightly when taking the photos. Also the German, what was his name? He lived somewhere in Württemberg, forged alleged UFO pictures with car lights and hand lamps, which he took at night and in dark rooms. The result was exactly the same images as the ones in front of you.
Contact Report 382.
It has also been the case for many years now that our worldwide efforts of clarification and surveillance, in this regard, have not produced any positive results and therefore no contacts between terrestrial human beings and extraterrestrials have been recorded. These clarifications are without any doubt because our monitoring in this regard is absolutely faultless, because our apparatuses and devices register all foreign to Earth mental vibrations of acute activities, but also of telepathic nature, therefore nothing can escape us in this respect. If communications between Earth foreigners and Earth humans had taken place in the last major period of time, then this would have been recorded by our automatic recording devices and would have become known to us. This in addition to the fact that we have always made individual clarifications with regard to all persons who claimed and still claim to have had or still have contact with extraterrestrials in any way. But the results concerning such contacts are consistently negative to this day, and that is absolutely clear. It is no different with extraterrestrial flying objects, because also with regard to these we have built up a global surveillance network a few months ago so that no objects can enter or leave the airspace without being registered by us. Until recently this was different, because we had not yet installed the necessary equipment. Consequently, some foreign objects escaped our attention in recent years. But this has nothing to do with the registration of foreign mental vibrations, which we have been controlling worldwide for more than 82 years. Therefore, we are also informed about when and where contacts between Earth humans and Earth foreigners have actually taken place. During this time, their number, you accepted, applies to only 8 such contacts. But of all those who claim that they have or have had such contacts, only one is who openly admitted the truth and came forward, the American Daniel Fry. All others remained silent to the public about their contacts. And what else is to be said about extraterrestrial flying objects? They have entered Earth's airspace very sparsely since 1984. What has been observed since then of unknown flying objects were usually, with very few exceptions, secret military or official flying objects of terrestrial origin.
Contact Report 385.
The electromagnetic oscillations of the Earth continue to produce luminous phenomena which are seen as light objects, and these very often also occur in the form of seaquake lights and in the same way as earthquake lights. Also luminous gas clouds, which rise from the bottom of the sea to the surface and into the air, as it happens also in moorland areas with regard to the so-called will-o'-the-wisps, but also ball lightning are frequent phenomena which occur at the mentioned places. Experts call these light phenomena UFOs, which happens especially by people who are of esoteric and religious faith, whereby they regard the appearing phenomena as of extraterrestrial origin, which is, of course, nonsense because real extraterrestrial flying machines, which are piloted by life forms, correspond to an absolute rarity.
Contact Report 401.
I am frequently asked, especially from the US and Mexico, about the sporadic appearance of small white objects at high altitude in the sky. I have also been sent a video showing such objects, white, round things that appear like small moving clouds that often change their position and sometimes seem to merge into each other, but then separate again. There are hundreds of such things at a time. To me, it looks as if they are small cloud-like formations, which, as with larger similar phenomena in relation to earthquake lights, are caused by natural phenomena, such as gas concentrations, and by Earth electromagnetic oscillations and energies, which are then mistaken for UFOs in the sense that they are extraterrestrial jet ships or flying machines. Also, the earthquake lights are interpreted again and again as UFOs of extraterrestrial origin, because they often have forms which look like any futuristic flying objects. These often shining electromagnetic objects also have the property, as you have explained to me, that hallucinations are caused in some humans, which are often based on the fact that some humans consider everything to be real. Very often, such hallucinations lead to illusory experiences in such a way that the hallucinators see themselves as abducted by aliens, especially with regard to small gray males with big almond-shaped eyes, etc. False memory images are created by the brain, which feign something experienced without actually happening. A phenomenon that also occurs in such humans in a state of hypnosis. As you once explained, in the hypnotic state, stories and experiences are created in the brain that seem completely real, but are not real and therefore never happened. If I remember correctly, these hallucinations are triggered in the cranial and temporal lobes. So it follows that the alleged abductions of terrestrials by extraterrestrials are based on pure hallucinations, as well as all the associated stories of alleged medical examinations, impregnations, robbery of the fetus, of strange time gaps, the local displacement of the allegedly affected, the switching off of lights and car engines, etc., of the hundreds and thousands of allegedly abducted humans all over the world, with the USA leading the way. The truth is that only 2 authentic cases in the last 240 years can be mentioned, as you recently explained to me in a purely private conversation. Even the fairy tales of alleged implants, etc., are based on hallucinations or on events in which the person concerned has unnoticed in some way a foreign body, metal or plastic, etc., has penetrated the body or limbs. It is not uncommon for there to be several such foreign bodies. Even mass observations of alleged extraterrestrial missiles can be based on hallucinations caused by Earth electromagnetic oscillations and their energies, especially if strange nebulous or cloud-like formations are connected with them, which are caused by ionizations in the atmosphere.
Although we talked about it before, but apparently I misunderstood you regarding the objects in Mexico and explained that I had no answer to that. But now I know what your question is about, which I can only answer in the sense that you just explained it. And what you're going to say is actually based on our findings as we conveyed them to you. Unfortunately, this will not change the fact that all those who believe in the absurdities of alleged abductions by extraterrestrials and in everything allegedly connected with them will not be lectured. In this regard, any instruction in relation to reality is usually just as meaningless as it is in relation to crop circles, belief in ghosts, all esotericism, religious sectarianism, the false teachings of religions and everything that has to do with occultism and hallucinations, imaginations, and delusions of any kind from the human brain.
Contact Report 408.
What the animals perceive are geophysical effects in the form of electromagnetic oscillations, which are created in the Earth's interior by the fact that, to put it simply, enormous weights of rocks, as well as other layers of material press against each other with enormous forces and rub against each other, which causes changes in the rock and in the materials and thus creates electromagnetic oscillations. In the same way, electromagnetic oscillations in the Earth's interior are caused by magma, water, and gas processes. The resulting electromagnetic oscillations are always discharged upwards or to the Earth's surface. These oscillations are able to cause light phenomena in the Earth's atmosphere, namely the so-called earthquake or seaquake lights, which are often called UFOs by observers. This in addition to the fact that they also form nebulous formations and clouds. Animals, birds, fish, and all creatures are sensitive to the electromagnetic oscillations, causing them to become agitated and behave as if they were disturbed, often taking flight. In earlier times, when man had not yet lost his natural abilities, he too was able to perceive these vibrations, which today, with few exceptions, is no longer possible. But if he prepares himself to observe thoroughly the world of animals, birds and fish and all the creatures, then he can recognize from their behavior when certain natural events occur, such as earthquakes, seaquakes and landslides, etc.
Contact Report 423.
Then it would be interesting to know how it behaves with flights of extraterrestrials into the terrestrial airspace, if you and your Federated are excluded. Has something new come up? As you once explained to me, you have been doing some special research on this subject over the last few years.
With regard to new entries of strangers to the Earth, nothing has come up for a very long time. Thorough studies and clarifications on our part have shown that since 1947, no foreigners have flown into the airspace of the Earth unknown to us. Clear investigations, which we have conducted over the last 3 years, have revealed that only we and our Federation allies were operating in Earth's airspace, along with a few others, all of whom, however, eventually became known to us, and all of whom, with one exception, have joined our Federation. With only 6 exceptions, none of all these strangers to Earth have made any other contact with Earth humans, neither with us nor with strangers, and neither with our Federation allies nor with us. The 6 exceptions, apart from your person, are known to you, and these Earthlings have all died in the meantime.
Then you could say that apart from the aircraft belonging to you and your Federation, and those who then joined your Federation, no other alien aircraft have been sighted on Earth in recent decades? But there are an enormous number of sightings around the world.
The many sightings of unidentified flying objects in terrestrial airspace are based on the one hand on electromagnetic as well as purely atmospheric and natural phenomena of the Earth, but also on the fact that secret military test flights with futuristic aircraft are observed. Such test flights have been taking place since the beginning of aviation and were also carried out during the World War II years and afterwards, and they continue to this day. In very many cases it was and is such secret flying machines, which were seen all over the world and were mistaken for extraterrestrial aircraft and are still mistaken for them.
But what's interesting to hear from you now is that for the last 3 years, you have finally found out the truth about alien aircraft and alleged contacts. Nevertheless, one question remains open, namely that various people have described abductions, contacts, and observations, etc., under hypnosis. Also, the so-called channeling is still current with various lunatics and cheats.
We have already talked about this earlier. These are imaginations and visions as well as effective delusions, wishful thinking and Earth electromagnetic influences on the brain, etc. What is concerning channeling? There is to say that on the one hand it is absolute nonsense and on the other hand it is delusion. But you know that.
Contact Report 424.
Then another question regarding the entry of extraterrestrial flying apparatuses into terrestrial space, which you once estimated to be about 3,000 a year. Must we assume that these flying apparatuses were only those of your Federation and yourselves?
In the last 200 years, there were also a few others apart from us, and various other Earth foreigners from our Federation who flew into Earth space. On the whole, however, the 3,000 flights taking place per year are traceable to us and to our Federation, as well as to Asket, and in a few cases to beings foreign to Earth who later on joined our Federation. The number of flights has decreased drastically to a number of 12 per year since then, and these flights relate to our work with you and our visits. Except one, all the beings foreign to Earth who flew into Earth's space have joined our Federation after we contacted them, as I have already said.
Then all the so-called UFOs, which were observed in the last century, were spaceships from you, your Federation, and from those who joined your Federation after they had been contacted by you here on Earth? And what about Roswell? Do the beings foreign to Earth, which were bioorganic androids, belong to you as well?
Of course, not all so-called UFOs were spaceships of beings foreign to Earth, because the majority of all observations of such objects were and are still today based on earthly things, for example on electromagnetic or atmospheric phenomena, but also based on other natural occurring happenings like swarms of insects or birds, dust formations, and so forth, or on meteors from space. Apart from this, however, there were and still are many objects of futuristic forms of secret military origin of the most diverse states, which were and are also still called UFOs, or extraterrestrial flying apparatuses by Earth humans, due to a lack of knowledge regarding their origin and construction. The sighting of UFOs is often also based on earthly flying machines, such as airplanes and balloons of all types. What has to be said concerning Roswell is that we and our Federation and all beings foreign to Earth, and who were flying into Earth's space, and then joined our Federation, did not have anything to do with this incident.
May one ask, how many peoples foreign to Earth, which flew into Earth's space, and which you contacted, joined your Federation? And how many persons were involved in your investigation of 3 years? Were it only Florena, and Jana, and their friends and you?
During the entire last and second last century, the 20th and the 19th century respectively, there had been 5 visitors foreign to Earth, which joined our Federation. In another case, this was not possible because we were not able to contact them. In this new century and millennium, nothing has happened yet, which is not yet to be expected, because populated planets are very far from Earth, and not many find their way to Earth, although they are able to master space travel technology, which is the exception rather than the rule. There were 427 persons involved in the investigation that was of special interest to us.
Man, that is a large number of people. So, you have spent the last 3 years investigating contacts in regard to beings foreign to Earth and found that no contacts have taken place between beings foreign to Earth and human beings of Earth, except in the few cases that are known to me and pertain to you Pleiaren and your Federation. Is your knowledge now complete? You once said that you would not be able to watch over the entire Earth, therefore, that under circumstances some flights and so forth could be missed by you.
That is right. For a long time, we were not able to watch altogether everything pertaining to flights of beings foreign to Earth. But now, through our newest technology, we could investigate the whole of the 19th and the 20th century and the first years of the 21st century. The result of this investigation is that it is how I told you on my last visit on the 10th of June, and how I have said it now. The fact is that since 1800 until now 2006, the flying objects observed from outer space solely belong to us, Pleiaren and the 5 others mentioned who joined our Federation, and those we could not contact and have remained foreign to us. The thing about Roswell is another and special case because back then bioorganic androids were found. And one also has to say now that when flying machines as well as telemeter discs originating from outer space are seen, then these belong only to us Pleiaren and our Federation. Contacts with Earthlings do not take place, and apart from the contact with you, no other contacts exist. That will only change when other beings foreign to Earth land openly and take up contacts, which will only happen then when we have left.
Indeed, disappointing. Everything, therefore, is nonsense and idle talk, As to the claims made by many people that they have been having contacts with extraterrestrials, and would continue in such, and had and would have the opportunity to fly with them in spaceships, or claim that the possibility of channeling or telepathic contacts and so on was given.
This is absolutely true.
But this very conversation now taking place between you and me will call many opponents to the fore, accusing us, especially me, of lying, because it could not be that only the contacts between you and me would be in accordance with the facts and truth, whereas everything else is lies, deception, imagination and illusion, as well as delusion and so on. The world of UFO believers, and UFO fanatics and those believing in extraterrestrials will scream and howl, and especially the self-appointed specialists and experts in matters of UFOs and extraterrestrials will also come forth and scream falsehood and deceit in the same way as UFO opponents and other self-appointed experts and specialists in this line of thought, who have always maintained that as a whole, everything was only deception and fraud, delusion or chimera and so on. However, it will also be the UFO esoterics and the like-minded UFO sectarians who climb on the same accusatory bandwagon, as well as all those stuck in fantasies who believe that extraterrestrials live among human beings and would be present at any meetings and assemblies of UFO believers, etc. This is also case with the nonsense of seances where the departed are supposed to be present or could be called to join. Completely crazy ones even claim that extraterrestrials participate in Earth governments and would direct and control the destiny of Earth and its humankind.
That it will be so is certain, because truth is not only disenchanting, however, also frightening, and it shatters the illusions, hopes, desires, imaginations, and delusions, and so on, of many believers in UFOs. However, those believing in UFOs and many others wish to be cheated and led into delusion and do not acknowledge the truth, just as those believing in religions and sectarians. They neither wish to see nor recognize nor acknowledge the truth, because they are caught by their belief and their illusions, which they are holding high above all truth and reality. As a rule, to free themselves of this belief is impossible because it is equal to a hereditary disease, which needs a very long time to be healed and can only be overcome by reason and understanding. Likewise it is with opponents, because their reason and understanding is breaking down as well. However, in a different manner than that, according to the believers, in regard to imagined extraterrestrials and their spaceships, as well as so-called contacts and abductions and so on. However, also opponents fall into a belief, as well as those who know everything better and those who negate, and this likewise does not let them recognize and acknowledge the truth. They are just as sick in believing as all the other believers.
Very well. Then if unidentified flying objects were seen in Earth's space, then they belong to you, your federation, or to your later federation, and in 2 cases to the foreigners that you could not contact, if I include Roswell. And as to contacts through extraterrestrials with Earth humans, then all but 1 case lead back to your federation, and all of the contact persons have died, and none of the ones that have for years been saying that they were having contacts with you or with other extraterrestrials belong to them, and that they also call you Pleiadians. Because at the beginning we said as a precaution that you called yourselves Pleiadians to then later uncover the lies of such persons. Then, when the lies had multiplied, and the world was full of such claims of persons who said they were having contacts with you, we came out into the open and revealed from where you really come from, and how you call yourselves in fact Pleiaren and not Pleiadians. All the liars have in this way exposed themselves, even though they are still trying to save face by weaving more lies. At what stage is the general control as to further flights of beings foreign to Earth?
Should further flights take place, although we do not expect any, we would of course inform you. And what has to be said and can only be said again and again and has often been said regarding contacts between Earth humans and foreigners to Earth is that you are the only person in the whole world who is capable of having contacts with us Plejaran and those belonging to our Federation. And also in this respect, no other contacts of any kind are taking place between other beings foreign to Earth and Earth's human beings, because no other beings foreign to Earth exist, apart from us, who are operating in this way in Earth's space. And no more in conjunction with us has to be said regarding the tissue of lies of the alleged contact persons, because the facts tell the whole story. If nonetheless our ships are sighted on different locations in Earth's space, and these are solely of extraterrestrial origin, then this has to do with special duties to be carried out, during which the cloaking has to be disabled.
Contact Report 428.
But tell me, you have stated that you have checked the last 200 years regarding flight entries of extraterrestrials. And regarding Roswell, you told me you had nothing to do with it. With regard to UFO crashes, it is claimed in ufological circles that besides in Roswell, alien aircraft also crashed elsewhere in the USA, but also in Mexico, in Russia, and in Norway, as well as in Sweden, England, and South America.
These are senselessnesses of unparalleled kind, nothing but wild stories of lies, governmental and military disinformation, as well as wild fantasies. For our part, we were able to establish with absolute clarity that all these alleged crashes of extraterrestrial flying objects did not take place.
In that case, only you and members of your confederation have actually been seen on the Earth in the last 200 years, leaving aside Roswell and the case where you were unable to establish contact. The very case where some of our passive members were able to photograph an alien technical flying object above our center. But what about the period prior to the 200 years you have checked? Did extraterrestrials who did not belong to you then also come to the Earth?
That is with certainty the case, and therefore not to be doubted.
Then I would like to know how many different types and forms of spaceships and beamships you Plejaran have had in operation over the last 200 years up to today and still have, in case you are able to provide information about this? And how many types and forms do your Confederation allies have?
I do not know precisely the exact number in relation to our different types and forms of spaceships and beamships, but I think there are currently altogether more than 600 different types that we have in use. I do not know how many further types and forms were in operation during the last 200 years. Concerning the different types and forms of spaceships and beamships that are in operation with our Confederation members, I do not know any number to mention, but there are many thousands of them.
And have you and your Confederation members also often been cruising around in the earthly airspace with the most diverse vehicles during the last 200 years?
Yes, with thousands of different flying machines.
And could these also be observed by the human beings of the Earth?
This possibility was of course always given and will always be given. This even though, for safety reasons, we protect ourselves better against sight at the present time.
After all, you and your Confederation members have also drastically reduced the flight entries into the earthly space.
That is correct, since there are only a few dozen left per year, apart from the daily control flights, which of course we carry out uninterruptedly.
Contact Report 439.
So you have said that in the earthly airspace with regard to extraterrestrial flying objects, only those of you Plejaran, as well as those of your federated and of the unidentified strangers can be observed. Is the state still the same, that you still could not identify the strangers, and that they still can be observed in the airspace of the Earth?
Actually, the situation is still the same with regard to the unidentified ones, but we do not try to clarify it anymore, because we have gained knowledge that there is no danger for us or for the people on Earth from these strangers. So we also do not try to disturb their own secrecy and to make ourselves recognizable to them, for which we can also assume with certainty that these strangers have no knowledge of our existence, because we always shield ourselves from them in every respect against sight or location, so only we know of their existence. The alien flying objects can often be observed worldwide by terrestrial human beings, because they quite obviously do not have any shielding technology against sight, as is the case with us. What we have also clarified, however, is the fact that these strangers possess the most varied forms of flying objects, but also that they have no contact whatsoever with Earth humans and have never come into direct or indirect contact with such people, and consequently there can be no reports of the experiences of any Earth humans.
So the unidentified flying objects observed in the last months, insofar as they were of extraterrestrial nature, are thus only a matter of concern to you, Playaran, your Federated and the unidentified strangers, but not to other strangers from space.
That is not true. No, because since the 1st of July 2006, we have comprehensively shielded our airplanes in order to gain control over how often the unidentified strangers can be observed on average in all earthly airspace during a year. This is a special investigation which will continue until the 30th of June 2007.
Aha, then since the 1st of July 2006, all observations of unidentified flying objects, which were probably of extraterrestrial origin, have been aircraft of the unidentified aliens. But one more question. Since when have they been on Earth and flying around in the air?
Looking back into the past, we can see that these aliens have been appearing in the air for several centuries.
This, of course, explains a lot, especially many appearances of UFOs, which could not be assigned to earthly phenomena, as well as not to earthly flying machines, because at that time, no such machines existed. Neither did they belong to you, Plearan, or your Federation, because if I take your old explanations into account, you have always been wary of being sighted by people of the Earth. Regarding the unidentified strangers, I wonder if you have not tried to get in contact with them and find out what their mission here on Earth is?
Your words are correct regarding the unidentified flying machines that were observed on Earth in earlier centuries. With regard to the unidentified aliens, the following must be said. Over the past few years, we have made several attempts to contact them, but according to our control equipment, our signals, for reasons unknown to us, always radiated back to us before they could even reach the direct range of the alien aircraft. From this, we deduced that the strangers were not willing to make contact, so we stopped our efforts to make further contact attempts. And since we only tried to make ourselves noticeable in the form of the signals mentioned above, but not by sighting or locating them, the strangers did not discover our presence so far. As a result of the fruitless attempts of contact on our part, we are not aware of the alien mission. Also, it is only since 1 week that we have known, through further investigations in the past, that these foreigners have been present on Earth for a very long time, and that they appear again and again in such a way that they can be observed by Earth humans. But as I already explained, there is no proof that they would have come into direct or indirect contact with Earth humans, because for such contacts, we did not find any evidence with any Earth humans.
There have been reports since July 2006, just since you are completely shielded from detection and visibility, of UFOs that I don't think can be linked to terrestrial aircraft, or any other flying devices or to natural terrestrial phenomena.
We are aware of this, and indeed some of the unidentified flying machines are in some instances a cause of concern to the aliens, while other observations are nevertheless attributable to terrestrial flying machines or natural phenomena. It will take some time, even if Quetzal is reachable at the moment, because it takes about 2 minutes for my questions to reach Quetzal via all relay stations, just as it takes 2 minutes for the answer. Quetzal is reachable, and he will send me his answer in a few minutes as soon as he has found the data.
You did all this by way of pure thought vibration?
This is the only way I can do it, because everything has to take place through the apparatuses of my flying machine, whose apparatuses are controlled in every respect only by my thought vibrations.
As is the case with all your ships, apparatus, and equipment, unless you wish to handle things manually or acoustically with your voice.
Contact Report 441.
Around 22 years have now passed since you and Quetzal told me privately that you had comprehensive cognitions in regard to terrestrial UFOs and the massacre of animals and alleged abductions which were disguised as the shoddy efforts of extraterrestrials. You said thereby that, in regard to this, involved in these machinations are governments, the military, as well as industrial businesses and powerful ones of finance, which constitute a special group, to which still smaller groups are also related. At that time you promised that you would officially explain more about that when the time is ripe for that. Can one now speak publicly about that?
With the named group, it concerns a worldwide branching from governments, the military, industrial groups, secret services, paramilitary, and powerful ones of finance, as you correctly said. Those in the know and contributors are only certain elements of the same, who profit greatly, financially and power politically, from their secret machinations, for which reason the entire powers of the government, military and industrial as well as finance are not involved in the situation and are also not informed in regard to this. The group is not organized as such, rather is only a loose collection, whereby their interests, however, have a common form which, already since the 1920s, was designed to operate a continuous, ingenious, large-scale disinformation campaign regarding the question of extraterrestrial life. The group, which is split into many small groups, has many kinds of technical possibilities at their disposal, which they employ for their evil and human misleading purposes. That started with technologies of electromagnetism to do with precision electronics and computer engineering, up to and including apparatuses through which brainwashing and the programming and altering of consciousness is evoked in humans. They even have back-engineered beamships at their disposal, whereby, in certain contexts, even anti-gravity finds application. It has also occurred many times that premeditated abductions of Earth humans by extraterrestrials and the massacre of animals has been and is faked by this group. That stands partly also in connection with those illusionary and schizophrenic visions and apparent experiences of those who believe that they have had or have these kinds of real experiences. Also, wrong information and falsified pictures of alleged extraterrestrial flying devices is strategically circulated worldwide, whereby, according to our investigations, about 98% of all false pictures, films, videos, and false information is directed at moving the Earth humans to angst and terror of extraterrestrials and to engender hate and thoughts of revenge in the Earth humans. Therefore, in this way, angst, terror, and hate is stirred up against all life foreign to Earth. Especially films for cinema and television serve this purpose, as also, however, do many books which are constructed on lies and untruths, and are written partly by experts in psychology and psychiatry. All this nonsense sells very well to the Earth humans because many on the search for the effective truth trust and believe this false information and these films and pictures. Angst, horror, terror, hate, and revenge always sell well, while the truth appears too banal and therefore appears uninteresting as well as not worth knowing. Only the fantastic and unreal find a place in the interests of Earth humans. 35. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, The entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because, through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, the entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. The entire war, electronics and weapons industries and so forth, thereby gain an enormous boost. Yet, in the worldwide group, secret paramilitary units also exist as smaller groups, which carry out the same kind of operations, which, however, are mostly controlled by the worldwide group. In particular, these small groups carry out premeditated abductions, which are credited ostensibly to the extraterrestrials, as well as, however, also simulated appearances of alleged extraterrestrial flying craft, which are then collectively declared to be extraterrestrial UFO appearances and are often observed, photographed, and filmed by many people. Thereby, the illusion of an ostensible extraterrestrial abduction or observation of extraterrestrial flying devices is evoked. What is further to say about that is that, in this worldwide group, with all the small groups who partly also work autonomously, there exists a proper UFO trade and a subculture in regard to animal massacres and abductions and so forth. The entire thing is secretively financed through governments, the military, industrial groups and financially powerful ones who are interested in angst, terror and hate being stirred up to their highest forms in regard to the alleged evil extraterrestrial foreigners because they can thereby gain gigantic financial profit and advantage. It is on this basis that, in every regard, from this group, only stories, cinema and television films and observations of UFOs will be accepted and profitably exploited, which are based on everything negative and, as is becoming proverbial with the Earth humans, on the malicious and aggressive nature of the extraterrestrials. Only that which evokes angst, fear, and terror as well as engenders hate and revenge is accepted by the group and exploited worldwide in order to obtain enormous profit with it. Conversely, in addition to that, everything which is good and positive is vehemently slandered and is designated as a swindle, lie, and deception, as is the case with you and us, since, in keeping with the interests of the group, we are not permitted to exist, and you are not permitted to be in contact with us. Rather, you must be a liar and a fraud. So, from the group and their small groups, the Earth humans will be served up deliberately false and fear-influencing stories in regard to extraterrestrial UFOs and foreigners to Earth and their alleged horrifying machinations like, for example, painful examination contacts and animal massacres along with falsified encounters with alleged extraterrestrials. Along with profit, the whole matter also serves deeply based psychological propaganda in order to insult forms of life who are foreign to Earth and to brand them as malicious beings and to create angst, hate, revenge, and hysteria because great financial means will be thereby freed up, which serve research for the production of innovative and futuristic weapons of all kinds. Therefore, in these Earth humans, in regard to the extraterrestrial, an enemy will be psychologically, deliberately created which does not exist and which will, in a manner, be made into a malicious being such that the Earth humans, in their angst, will be driven to freeing up horrendous sums in order to therewith manufacture weapons against the alleged malicious invaders. Also, with these acts, various groups play off against each other, which, however, is part of a well-thought-out plan which is carried out and implemented by secret services, psychoterrorists, espionage groups, and treacherous disinformation agents, and which is underpinned by false information regarding UFOs and alleged extraterrestrials. Additionally, belonging to this plan is the invention of an imaginary extraterrestrial enemy, as well as a danger emerging from this, an enemy and a danger which naturally will have to be fought. The infamy is thereby that, first of all, everything is made ridiculous because the concerned abductees, examinees, chance contactees, and UFO observers can provide no evidence for their experiences which would withstand a real examination. Then comes the second fact, which exists in the fact that angst, terror, hate, and feelings of revenge is produced in the Earth humans, whereby then the weapons industry can be built up, and indeed, especially in regard to futuristic weapons, of which the normal Earth humans have no idea, and of which they do not ever dare to dream. The entirety is thereby a well-thought-out psychological network on which the progress of the entire weapons industry and the power of the military, of the federal leadership, the finance sharks, and the industry businesses, as well as the secret services, can be built up ever further. To this end, angst, terror, hysteria, hate, and revenge is sown in regard to all foreigners from outer space. So the Earth humans become duped and financially exploited by the responsible ones of this dangerous group and their small groups, and are deliberately driven to abhor and to hate the extraterrestrial foreigners. Corresponding cinema and television films serve as especially suitable means for that. The foreigner angst, respectively. Alien angst, which is thereby produced, surpasses all normal angst, and the responsible ones of the group know that precisely, for which reason they can also thereby calculate that all necessary finances flow to them, which they require for their weapon research, their weapon manufacture, their leading of wars, and desires for power, as well as for unrealistic cinema and TV films which demonize the Earth strangers. The creation of a supposed threat from extraterrestrials as well as the alien angst is, for them, a profitable matter which is operated under the shabby cloak of a federal, respectively, country security and of world peace. For the entire machinations of the group, the meanest machinations are quite good enough, which, as said, were already operating since the 1920s, and to that also belong highly developed electronic weapons systems, futuristic flying discs, Earth humans who are hypnotically and surgically converted, as well as converted in their consciousness, to robots, whereby some have an appearance like the being which is called the Little Gray. On one hand, there is the dim-witted paradox that the extraterrestrial flying devices are denied and the strangers to Earth are made ridiculous or made out to be monsters by means of psychological propaganda, while, on the other hand, a financial exploitation of the people's results through the inciting of angst, terror, hate, and revenge, and indeed thereby in that a simulation results in regard to a supposed threat from extraterrestrials. A paradox without compare, to which the question must be put: how far are the Earth humans imbued with reason and understanding that they do not recognize this paradox? The entire prearranged game of the group and their small groups, as already said elsewhere, also includes faked encounters with alleged extraterrestrials, whereby these are truly nothing other than normal Earth humans or those who have been transformed into aliens. In order then to affirm the improvised encounters with those foreign-to-Earth psychologists and other experts are pulled in into whom the wildest stories are hammered for so long until they believe the entire swindle and nonsense and employ verifiable and genuine analyses which are recorded and published in books and documentation as well as in cinema and TV films. And since, as a rule, the supposed extraterrestrials are described as horrible villains, just according to the plan of the group and their small groups, the picture of the extraterrestrial threat is powerfully incited. Thereby, not only is the slandering in regard to the real strangers to Earth always more exaggerated, as also more and more finances flow into the cash box of those who stupidly and dim-wittedly earn as a result of the entire tissue of lies and slander, and thereby come by the means to reach their criminal goals. A certain part of the group has also fallen to a Christian sectarianism and to the supposed end times in such a way that hope is directed at a malicious invasion of extraterrestrials resulting on Earth, and thereby the prophesied Armageddon will become reality, in which Jesus Christ celebrates his official return and God the Father will exercise his judgment. Their delusion is therefore bound with a biblical end of the world, which, as they believe, rests on the terrible badness of the earth humans. And in order to accelerate this divine judgment as well as the return of Christ, they do everything in order to make the way free for that. The monstrous power of the worldwide group and their small groups, as well as the religious fanaticism, together with the cultic maintaining of the secret of the entire underhanded, degenerated, and deceptive, as well as criminal and felonious machinations, lead to malignant effects which could not be worse. These are the facts which I have to name in regard to your question.
Contact Report 442.
Some time ago, Professor James Deardorff from the USA wanted to know a few things about the cake ship that landed on our parking lot between the shed and the residential building. The story concerning the striking similarity of the hull of the cake ship with a barrel cover form, or with a barrel lid, and its origin from storage barrels in our possession is mentioned in the 254th Contact Report. Christian Freiner therefore had to take several photos and indicate the size of the ship and the distance between me with the camera and the cake ship. For my part, I know that the diameter is about 3.50 meters, which is what I told Christian. But can you tell me the exact size, but also how many people can fit in this small ship?
The lowest outermost diameter with the flat rim was 3 meters and 52 centimeters, but the outermost outer rim diameter was 3 meters and 20 centimeters. The entire outer rim structure on which the oscillation accumulators were mounted was 37.6 centimeters, while the dimension from the lower rim ring to the plane of the oscillation accumulators was 32 centimeters, as with these. And the space in the flying apparatus was designed for one person in a seated position, although 3 people could be accommodated in a crowded manner if necessary. However, this type of flying apparatus was not suitable for the earthly atmosphere, which is why they were removed from earthly space after only a short period of use.
I was not aware of this. The oscillation accumulators probably mean the silver bullets, I suppose, right?
That is true. Their diameter was 32 centimeters, as I said.
Contact Report 446.
Last Sunday, I watched a program on TV which talked about electronic technology which will be common on Earth in 2070. It was quite interesting because it showed a lot of things that you also had in the past, before you extended everything concerning the operation and control of devices, apparatus, spacecraft, machines, holographic vision, communication and robots, etc. to pure mind control. Actually, we have never officially talked about it, or at least only rarely, the reason being that it would have sounded too futuristic and fantastic. But now that the Earthlings are broadcasting such information programs on television about future electronic technology, I suppose we can talk about it too, can't we? In our core group, the whole thing is not a secret, but outwardly we have not let it be known much that all your technical and electronic operations are no longer done manually, but purely with mental vibrations, so that all possible operations and circuits, etc. on apparatuses, devices, weapons, and all kinds of machines, etc., are done purely with mental vibrations. However, no holographic control panels are used in this process, which would still have to be operated by finger touch, as was shown, for example, in the program in question. In your case, The whole thing works through a central computer, which receives all thought vibrations and converts them into corresponding functions, as Quetzal once explained to me when I was at his home. Although you can operate everything by hand, because everything is equipped for it, you only use it if you want to or if there is a breakdown. But breakdowns are completely impossible because your technology is perfectly sophisticated and can independently detect and repair potential damage before it occurs.
Our technology in this regard is actually very highly developed and seems really futuristic to Earth humans, so it is perhaps not good that you have talked about it now anyway. The reality of all our technology in every respect is much higher than what you have explained in your words, as you know. The whole thing in every respect is not yet imaginable for the Earth human, and therefore not comprehensible and not to be understood.
Contact Report 447 Abili. Kabul, Afghanistan. The 16th of September, 1964. In this way also the traditional prophecies of the signs in the sky have become reality. Because for years these have been seen and observed at all hours of the day and night and in all parts of the world, but unfortunately they are often misinterpreted and ridiculed. But the signs of the times are fireballs, explosions of rays in the atmosphere, Earth electromagnetic atmospheric phenomena, strange clouds and misty phenomena, which appear by the hundreds like small flying objects. But there also appear jet ships or space ships from foreign planets, which are steered by foreign people, who come here in order to indirectly enter into the evolutionary process of consciousness and into the action of consciousness through a proclaimer and his teaching of the Spirit, as well as through the teaching of truth and through the teaching of life, to intervene in the actions and work of earthly humanity because necessity demands it. Because the man of the earth, with his still limited consciousness, forces the basic and structural elements of nature and life to react, in order to destroy in his insanity myriad life and the climate of the earth. And what is to be said further? The ray ships, that is to say spaceships of foreign intelligences from distant worlds, are no fantasy. Because they exist like you and me, they are not cloud agglomerations, balloons, lightning, flocks of birds and the like, as they are so gladly called by scientists and leading authorities, by opponents of the truth or by laymen, who do not want to make themselves ridiculous with the recognition of the existence of the so-called UFOs. These unknown extraterrestrial flying objects, if they are not, as is often the case, top-secret earthly military aircraft and planes, they are real, as thousands of very good photographs, films and reports prove. And there is no shortage of real contacts, even if there are very few of them worldwide, and only a small handful in number, who have spoken with extraterrestrials. They all testify to the real existence of the extraterrestrials and their objects, the beam ships. They and everything else testify to the effective existence of the extraterrestrials, even if this existence is ridiculed by the terrestrial authorities and evil antagonists as not being proven, or simply presented as a hallucination, or even a lie. But for what reasons do the denying authorities and antagonists maintain very secret UFO reconnaissance groups, etc., which have the task to clarify the origin of the UFOs from space and to arm them for a possible space war, or a sudden invasion from space? An idea, by the way, which corresponds to a complete nonsense. Because the spacemen do not control our Earth in order to conquer or subjugate it. If they wanted to, they could have done so long ago. Because their technology reaches to the fantastic compared to the earthly one, and the earthly weapons of all armies would be nothing more than a toy for them, which they would throw away as rubble and useless junk due to unworthiness and uselessness. Moreover, their very highly developed technology goes back many centuries and millennia, so that, if it had been in their will, they could have conquered the earth when it was still in antiquity, or in the dark Middle Ages when it was growing towards its present state. But why are the authorities so eager to find out the secret of UFOs, and especially the unsolved mystery of the radiation propulsion, which makes the extraterrestrial aircraft, or UFOs, fly through the Earth's atmosphere at speeds of up to 100,000 kilometers per hour and more, neutralizing the gravity? So why these secret researches under exclusion of the public, when everything is supposed to be only lies and deceit? Why that? The authorities are afraid. Frightening. Deadly fear. For they fear an attack from space. And for this purpose it would be urgently necessary that they themselves be in possession of ray ships and ray weapons, so that they could counter the enemy attack already in world space itself. Others, however, fear panic and rampage of the population. If they should really become aware of the existence of the extraterrestrial UFOs and their crews, because panic and rampage already rolled over the population of different countries. When UFO sensational reports, so-called direct reports from the place of the event, were broadcasted over the radio stations. Direct reports, however, which did not correspond to the truth and were only sensational radio plays. The number of deaths of the population running amok went into high figures. However, the authorities, who stop practically all UFO reports if they have real backgrounds, do not consider that the panic of the masses will be much greater one day, if the extraterrestrials should really come in masses. In order to prevent perhaps the greatest insanity of the earthly humans, and to change the face of this world for the better. If the revolutionary events, which are caused by the humans of the earth in a responsible way, roll over this world. But it is questionable whether extraterrestrials ever interfere in earthly matters in this respect, because they have directives, which would only allow them to intervene under certain conditions. A real contact person, as well as reconnaissance planes and simple observers of really extraterrestrial flying machines, that is to say UFOs, are dealt with by the authorities, as well as by the people and by malicious adversaries and slanderers, who insult lies and fraud and may even be imprisoned for many years in a mean way, or interned in insane institutions. Because, as already mentioned, the authorities are unwilling to reveal the profound truth, they do not shy away from publishing denying notes and treatises in the newspapers, or from having them published by bought-in laymen, critics, opponents and so-called experts. For these reasons, in various countries, a real contact person, of which there are not even a handful, an observer or enlightener, plays with his freedom when he takes his task seriously and tries to create enlightenment. And the few people who have or have had contact, not even a small handful, have a very difficult position, because they encounter hatred, mockery, disbelief, official intrigues and partly church-destroying statements, as well as slander and much more. Contact Report 448.
In any case, those were none of our flying apparatus because ours are protected from every perspective, even from all advanced technical and fluidal, that is to say, fine material, vibrational tracking capabilities, both in relation to those that are terrestrial as well as those that are foreign to the Earth. Only if we deliberately make our aircraft visible, capable of being detected, or in any way recognizable? Can they be sighted or detected, such as with demonstrations, as we allowed these as proofs for you, in terms of photographic and film work, or for group members and your friends? Even by all technical and fine material detecting apparatuses of those who are foreign to the earth, also for the foreigners who are unknown to us, with whom we've searched for contact in vain. We have never been and never are able to be detected. Since a detection of our aircraft automatically triggers an alarm, which is why we've always had to make ourselves recognizable in certain cases, and will also have to continue to do so, should it be necessary. We have never been detected in such a way in the earthly airspace by any who are foreign to the earth and who don't belong to us, not to this day, and this will also remain so. Also with regard to our foreign unknowns, that is to say, those who are foreign to the earth and whose presence in the earthly airspace has, already for a long time, led to their observation by the earth humans again and again. These haven't been able to locate us yet. Therefore, they have no proofs of our presence, that is, apart from your evidence, which they have been made aware of in some circumstances. But they certainly do not have real proof of our existence, because they cannot possibly locate us and our flying apparatuses, not even if we make ourselves visible to you, the group members or your friends for a short time, which we will not do for some time anyway, as I already told you some time ago. As for our foreign unknowns, whose origin, technology, and task are likewise unknown to us, as you know, it is to be said that at present they continue to appear again and again all over the world and can be observed more frequently. Also, we cannot fathom why our signals, if we aim for them, are dissolved or reflected back to us and thus do not reach their aircraft. Consequently, we cannot establish contact with them, which we also have not tried to do for quite some time. With absolute certainty, it is also to be said that the foreigners do not maintain any contacts with the Earth humans because our worldwide, all-encompassing detection devices with which we can also detect the presence of our foreign unknowns would identify such contacts. And that we can be sure that our flying apparatus have not been detected by the foreigners so far is due to the fact that our highly advanced detection technology indicates to us every detection process in every direction, immediately and without delay, no matter what technology is used for detection.
You spoke of that once and said that this technology, which is unusually high and very futuristic for us Earthlings, is not a development on your part, and neither are your protective shields, which immediately convert all energy hitting them into their own energy, and through this, the protective shields strengthen instead of weaken. If I remember correctly, these forms of technology come from Askit's friendly people, the Meier in the Dal universe, who are more than 4,000 years ahead of you in relation to your technological development.
The technology mentioned does, in fact, trace back to the Meier, who have already assisted us for many years in every technological development. Consequently, we have a variety of technologies today that we did not yet have at the beginning of our contacts approximately 30 years ago.
Then another question about the foreigners, who have already circled around here on Earth for a very long time, as you say, and with whom you cannot enter into contact. Is it possible that these unknowns may come from the future, perhaps from other planets, or even from the Earth itself, or else from another dimension?
We have also thought about that, and have come to the conclusion that this may very well be possible, both the one and the other possibility.
Contact Report 450.
These are the foreigners unknown to us who operate in the terrestrial airspace. We have not been trying to get in touch with these foreigners for some time now, as I explained to you some time ago. Nevertheless, this did not and does not prevent us from fathoming their origins and their efforts here on Earth. I also told you that these foreigners have a variety of flying apparatuses that can be observed again and again by the Earth humans. I must now explain that our ongoing research into the foreigners has revealed something that throws a somewhat different light on the whole thing. Only 12 days ago we were able to find out that all the different types of flying apparatuses which we had assigned to the foreigners are not only applicable to them, because parts of the flying machines are in fact related to two other groups of extraterrestrial origin. But even with these, it was and is impossible for us to get in contact with them. Obviously, it is also the case that all three groups have nothing to do with each other and therefore have no contact with each other, as well as certainly no knowledge of our presence. It is true that all three groups have technology which does not allow us to make contact with them, but we have found out in this respect that this is because their technical devices and equipment are not capable of receiving our signals. But it is also otherwise because the material alloys of their flying apparatus reflect our signals and do not reach their tracking devices. In addition, and we have recently discovered this again, the entire technology of all three foreign groups is far inferior to our technology, which means for us that we must exercise a certain caution because we cannot judge the attitude of the foreigners. The low level of technology of the foreigners is obviously the reason why they have not been able to locate us with absolute certainty, and the low level of technology is also a sign for us that they are not yet capable of contacts in high form and therefore not yet able to contact us. According to their technology and evolution of consciousness, we have to assume, they could not cope with our level of evolution of consciousness, which could lead to very dangerous reactions if contacts were made anyway. But as far as the three different groups of foreigners are concerned, it must be said that, according to our extremely intensive and precise investigations, they have no contact with each other and probably do not even know about each other. Various of our investigations point this out. And it is also absolutely certain that all three groups of these foreigners have no open contact whatsoever with any human being on Earth or have had such contact during the last 350 years or so. In this respect, we have carried out detailed investigations in the form of extremely extensive and precise research into the past, which has yielded no results whatsoever of any contacts between these three groups of foreigners for us and any Earth humans. In this respect, our apparatus and equipment, etc., are very accurate and infallible, so that we can say with absolute certainty that no contact whatsoever has taken place between these three foreign groups of extraterrestrials, or perhaps future Earthlings, which could also be the case, and Earth humans.
So there are three different groups of extraterrestrial or terrestrial futures here on our world besides you, who are wandering around. Your surprise has succeeded. But are they really all of them? Or is it not possible that there are others who are roaming around here?
No, other Earth foreigners are certainly not here, because our very highly developed apparatuses and devices work flawlessly, so that we would be informed by them about other present extraterrestrial or Earth future forms without doubt and with absolute certainty. The fact that we only discovered a few days ago that the foreigners are three different groups is due to the fact that things have come to our attention which have only now made us aware that the various flying apparatus do not belong to one group alone. So we went back into the past by investigating the whole thing far, or about 350 years, and we came across the fact of the three groups, and were able to base our present research on it, which gave us and continues to give us the proofs of the three groups of foreigners. So she made her flying apparatus light up faintly and sent you an impulse so that you could look up and see it. When you then tried to make the flying apparatus light up a little brighter, because you thought it was a control device, she explained what you just said, and then, at your request, made the flying apparatus light up brightly and extensively. And that you have never seen this shape, size, and intensity of light before, that is because it is a completely new flying apparatus with many innovations, including the type of light. This new type of flying apparatus allows us to use the recently launched Dimension Gate, as you call it, and which we have been calling it since its completion, as we have adopted your term. So we can, with this new technology, penetrate into other dimensions and other space-time structures, and thus also move into the future and into the past.
So, what do these new ships look like?
The outer form has remained the same, only the entire inner technology has changed.
And what about the dome structure that can be pushed up and used as both shower room and toilet? Is it still the same? I ask this question because Michael Horn asked me about the dome structure. How he knows about this extendable or retractable dome structure is not known to me because I did not ask him about it.
No, that has changed as well, because the new aircraft have another upper level which can be used for various purposes, such as a small preparation room for food and as a dining room and working room for research purposes.
So 2 levels, or 2 extendable or retractable floors. But that's certainly only true for ships of 7 and 14 meters in diameter, isn't it? In the case of the ships with a diameter of only 3.50 meters, and the next larger ones over 14 meters, I cannot imagine an additional level that can be pushed up. Or am I wrong in this respect?
Yes, you are mistaken about the larger flying apparatus. For the smaller flying apparatus with a diameter of less than 7 meters, there is no level that can be pushed up. There are 2 levels that can be pushed up only in the 7 and 14 meter diameter flying apparatus. But as I said, you are mistaken about the larger flying apparatus because even those with a diameter of 21 to 28 meters have levels that can be pushed up, but only in a simple way. All bigger flying apparatus beyond that do not have an additional extendable level, because they are big enough to accommodate all necessary rooms for all purposes without extendable levels.
Although the extra upper level in the new ships is probably the same size as the lower level, I suppose.
That is true.
Now the question is, do you have any devices or apparatus that enable you to perceive and analyze not only the coarse material vibrations, but also the fine material vibrations? In this, I also include deposited human fluidal forces.
Such analysis devices belong to the standard equipment of every flying apparatus, but also to every person who carries a small device of this kind in his clothing when doing research work, etc. in foreign areas.
Then it is a warning device as well, I suppose.
Yes, that is the case.
What I would still be interested in regarding the 3 foreign groups of extraterrestrials or future Earthlings, or whatever they may be, is the following. Do you have any information on how many different flying apparatus each group has? And secondly, have you gained knowledge about what these 3 groups are doing here on Earth? And thirdly, it would be interesting to know why you have only now come to the conclusion that 3 different groupings exist. Fourthly, why did not you establish this fact when you went about 200 years into the past and researched everything concerning the first group of foreigners?
The fact that these are 3 different groups was only discovered a few days ago, because we received new devices and apparatus through the sonar, through which we were able to scan and examine their airplanes unnoticed by the foreigners. These new devices also serve to scan the airspace much more precisely for all kinds of objects than was possible with our previous devices. How?
Excuse me if I am interrupting you. By probing and examining, I assume you mean scanning, as we call it here, right?
That is what it means, yes. Well, we were able to scan the aircraft with the new devices and equipment, and we also noticed that the foreign aircraft have 3 different basic techniques, which differ from each other in such a way that they could clearly only be assigned to 3 different technical development stages. In the end, it also turned out that the crews of the aircraft of each of the 3 types of technology are so fundamentally different that they have no relationship whatsoever to each other. In part, we were able to fathom the state of the evolution of consciousness of all 3 groups, whereby this state has 3 different and from each other blatantly striking evolutionary levels. In doing so, we also fathomed the fact that the 3 groups have no knowledge of each other and therefore no contact with each other. As far as the number of aircrafts registered by us, of the 3 groupings foreign to us, is concerned, the total number registered by us amounts to 216, although we do not yet have any data as to how many flying apparatus belong to which grouping in each case. However, we do know the number of different flying apparatus, whereby this amounts to 74 of them, and this in total in relation to all 3 groupings.
And again, a question on this. These ships or aircraft by your designation, are they in the airspace all the time?
No, that is not the case, because they disappear again and again, although we cannot determine where to. Then they just suddenly return without us being able to find any coordinates. And as far as the question of what these 3 alien groups are doing here on Earth is concerned, I can only say that we do not know. We have made one observation, however, and that is that at least one group is doing atmospheric and geological research. But as far as your question is concerned, why we did not recognize during our first investigations up to the time of about 200 years ago that the for us foreigners are 3 different groups and completely different human life forms. That is because we were not yet in possession of the scanning devices and scanning apparatus by which we could have clarified everything more exactly. Only on our request did the Sonair agree to make their high technology available to us, which enabled us to clarify everything. Although we have been in possession of scanning equipment for a very long time now, it was not possible to scan the aircraft and their crews with this equipment due to certain radiation from the foreign aircraft, because our scanning pulses were always reflected. Today, we know that the reason for this is the material alloy of the foreign aircraft, and strangely enough, all 3 groups of aircraft, although they are clearly not connected to each other and obviously have no knowledge of each other. Also, before you ask, we couldn't find out if the 3 alien groups maintain any stations on Earth, because even with our best and newest equipment, we couldn't find anything like that.
Contact Report 451.
The object you observed was one of a small armada of a total of 18 flying apparatus belonging to a group of strangers carrying out atmospheric and geological experiments and research, using sound waves generated by atmospheric explosions. They use atmospheric gases and electricity, which, when made to explode, produce popping noises, which also result naturally from pure atmospheric and atmospheric electrical as well as earth electromagnetic energies, whereby gas agglomerations form, which look like small individual clouds, which are stationary or whirl wildly around, as these can be observed particularly in the South American area. The banging noises of this kind can hardly be distinguished from the banging noises caused by exploding meteorites and by the explosions of strangers. And as for the altitude of the flying apparatus you observed, which you estimated to be between 20,000 and 22,000 meters, this was almost 23,000 meters, as we know from our records and observations. The activities of all 3 foreign groups are apparently increasing again worldwide after having restricted them for the last few years.
You said that you received new scanning devices from the Sonarn, through which you could scan the foreign aliens or future Earthlings, or whatever they are, and find out that these are 3 different groups, which are foreign to each other and have no contact with each other. It makes me wonder whether there aren't some other foreigners wandering around in the earthly airspace, which you might not have been able to locate.
This is definitely not the case, because our new and extremely accurate devices, which we received from the Sonarn, are much more advanced than ours. But even with these devices, we could not detect any other extraterrestrial or Earth foreign flying objects of any kind in the entire terrestrial space. The new devices also work in a very extensive range of fine material, as well as dimension-jumping vibrations, but even in these areas we could not detect any other Earth visitors.
So now it is absolutely clear by your latest technology that apart from the 3 groupings of foreigners on Earth respectively in the airspace you mentioned, there are no other extraterrestrials or future Earth visitors? But I would also like to ask you whether there are any new developments concerning unknown earthly flying machines.
I can now answer this with absolute certainty because our latest devices, which we received from the Sonarn, are absolutely infallible. With regard to earthly secret flying apparatus used for flight testing, we continue to see the same kind of secret aircraft that have been used for a long time, dating back to well before the mid-20th century. Since then, these have been the most diverse and sometimes quite futuristic and even strange forms of flying apparatus, which can be secretly created and tested and often observed. But these flying apparatus I am talking about now are exclusively flying objects of purely earthly origin, and that was also in the 20th century.
Contact Report 457.
And in regard to the 3 groups that have been traveling around our world, do you have any new insights on that?
As I mentioned before, we are no longer concerned with them. They are indeed active in the whole earthly airspace and also in the outer Earth envelopes. Furthermore, it seems that they have no knowledge of each other. As I explained to you before, just as they have absolutely no knowledge of our presence, although we leave it at that. Because, as we could clearly see with our latest technology, which we received from the Sonarn, their technology and their behavior, as well as their evolution of consciousness, is still very much in need of development. And this although they are masters of space travel and probably also of time travel. Therefore, it would not be good if they became aware of our presence and our home worlds. Although they are apparently aware of our contact with you, as we have found with them, they have no proof of this, because we are not recognizable to them, so they cannot locate us or our flying apparatus, which irritates them.
And when you are with me, like you are now, they cannot track that either.
This is completely impossible because our technology does not allow any tracking in relation to our flying apparatus and ourselves. Our present technology is shaped in such a way that we can only be seen and located if our protective belt can be penetrated, which we can prevent. Only when it is in our will can we be seen and located, as is the case right now with you, who are in my direct protection zone and you can see me.
Aha, I suppose that is the technique I experienced with you outside Bernadette's room when we suddenly found ourselves facing each other without me noticing you before.
Yes, it is actually that technique. When you are standing outside the screen, which cannot be located by any lower technique, you only see what the foreground and background and the surroundings make you perceive. Only when you can step inside the screen, which I have to make permeable, then you can see me. But even in the state of making it permeable, the protective screen cannot be located, nor, of course, the person inside it. On the other hand, all our flying apparatus have been equipped with the same system for quite some time now, because the old shielding technology was not as perfect and efficient as the new one.
But you could not be seen or located with the old shielding.
That is true, but the newest technology of the Sonair is much more efficient.
I have been approached again and again from all over the world about sighted unidentified flying objects and whether they have come to you.
It cannot be about our and our Federation's flying apparatus, because as I explained to you several times, we do not allow any more sightings in this regard, which will continue to be the case. So such observations can only be natural phenomena, an earthly flying apparatus, or those of the three foreign groups.
I also think so, and if you could be sighted and photographed by any Earthlings, as for example by our group members, then this was especially arranged by you, as it was when I could take the proof photos according to your order.
That is correct. Further photos of our flying apparatus will undoubtedly no longer be possible, because the earthly computer technology does not allow any more proof photos as you could still take them, because the technology that now prevails makes it easy to falsify such pictures, which was not possible at the time when you were ordered by us to take the films and photos. Also, as a favor to any group members, we will not allow any more photography. We will no longer make any exceptions, not even with regard to observations. Everyone has to accept that. And when you are no longer, then this rule will apply definitively anyway, whereby we will then also withdraw from the earth and never come back here again to get in contact with a person of this world again. Because when you leave, then our mission with regard to the earth and its humanity will also be finished.
Contact Report 463.
Note: the following excerpt is in regards to the April 21st, 2008 Phoenix Lights. Now the question whether you have any knowledge about this matter. Were these lights ships from your Federation or from the three different foreign groups?
Since we only sporadically include the three different foreign groups in our observations, I cannot say anything about it, because at that time, the area mentioned in the report did not fall within our closer observation range. As I judge the whole thing according to this report, it must have been the flying apparatus of the three foreign groups. The whole thing, with the formations and the flight movements and the disappearance of the flying apparatus, clearly indicates that. In any case, we have not registered any flying apparatus other than those of the three alien groups for a long time, not even with regard to flights into terrestrial airspace. We would certainly have registered alien new visitors, and moreover, such entries are very rare because many alien life forms of foreign and distant worlds do not have space travel at their disposal, while others are not yet able to cover the universal distances. For this reason alone, it is an absolute rarity that strangers from other worlds of the Milky Way or even from other galaxies come to Earth. Very big exceptions are the three alien groups and those few you know of who have joined our Federation, which is why we naturally no longer consider them strangers. Those also belong to our Federation today, whose expedition ship was destroyed over the Tunguska Plain about 100 years ago.
Contact Report 466.
But now I have a question. You fly at a single and multiple speed of light in your spaceships, and our earthly scientists claim that this is impossible, and that a spaceship can never reach this high speed, because the friction with matter, or with material space and ether, prevents this. Yes, it cannot be the electromagnetic radiation by which you protect yourself from the cosmic influences and the so-called cosmic ether in order to reach the speed of light and beyond. Yes, electromagnetic radiation of all kinds has the same speed, so about 300,000 kilometers per second. So it is probably not possible that you can use it to prevent friction, so it must be something else that you can use to prevent any friction with the ether or any matter. Is there something very special that you can name that allows you to go one and multiple times the speed of light? Is that a secret, or are you allowed to say something about it? I have never asked about it before, but I am always being asked questions about it that I cannot answer.
It is not a secret. And when I talk about it, I do not give away anything with which the earthly scientists can start something, because their knowledge and ability is far from being sufficient for them to make use of it at the present time and thus cause harm. So I can say that we use the photons, that is to say the light particles and time radiation, to shield our space flights from the material and anti-material environment. So, we wrap our space flights in a photon force field and in a time radiation screen and protect them from friction against the material space. The photons do not have any weight, but the mass zero, as it is also the case with respect to the time radiation, because they are both pure energy without any medium of their own, which is why they are neutral against any matter and are repelled by gravity. So we make use of this, namely by enclosing our spaceflight devices in a photon and time radiation screen, so that no friction with the material space can occur, which enables us to reach the speed of light and even to exceed it by a very high multiple, because no resistance by any matter appears. To explain details would be irresponsible, because Earth humans are not yet allowed to possess these, because they maliciously use all special achievements for weapon systems and war purposes, etc., which would also be the case with regard to photon technology. And as far as the ether in world space is concerned, it truly does not exist, because this is a mistaken assumption of the earthly scientists. Note, see ether, that what they assume to be ether is indeed pure energy, a radiation, and this does not have its own medium and therefore no mass.
Explained briefly and concisely. Thank you. Time radiation. Could one perhaps also call it tachyon matter, which must also be without medium? Ether thus does not exist, but only radiation, which is pure energy without mass. However, now the question how you can do it, to shield your spaceships against view and make them invisible for eyes and radar, etc. Are you allowed to say something about this? But I think that now finally something becomes clearer to me. If you shield your flying apparatus against any material friction by a photon shield, or photon protection shield, then it is probably so I assume, that these always light up when you have switched on this photon shield. Is that true?
This corresponds to the actual situation, and the term tachyon matter can be applied in a certain way, but it is a time vibration or time radiation, and has nothing to do with matter of any form. And regarding the invisibility of our flying apparatus, we can actually make our spaceflight apparatuses, as well as those we use in planetary airspaces, invisible to any view of any kind, by using special metallic alloys, the basis of which is, among other things, silver. As you know from the metallurgical analyses of the material of our flying apparatuses made in the USA. The materials used in our flying apparatus and spaceflight devices are transformed and superordinate composite materials, the composition and manufacture of which I cannot mention, but I can say that we obtain everything through cold fusion processes, as Marcel Vogel in the USA already discovered through his metallurgical analysis when you gave him the metal samples we received for analysis. So, when a flying apparatus, a spacecraft, a human, or any other object is made invisible, it is by directing light around it. The light waves are not reflected, but flow unbroken and uninhibitedly around the object, so that it becomes invisible to any natural or technical eye of any kind, also radar, etc., and simply allows the background to be seen unchanged.
Contact Report 494.
His is also evident in alleged UFO sightings, where smaller or larger groups of human beings fall into a kind of visionary delusion and see UFOs even though there are none. And this is only because a single person believes to see something and thereby triggers a nocebo effect. As a rule, the symptoms of nocebo start with one individual being for no apparent reason, but they affect others through imagination and cause an epidemic according to the domino principle, because more and more people are drawn into the maelstrom of the nocebo effect in rapid succession.
Contact Report 496.
Our flying discs are not shielded from sight by us, and also not in those moments when the static energy is illuminated or dissolved. With our manned flying apparatus, it is that we usually shield them against sight when it seems necessary to us in order not to frighten Earth humans. However, the shielding prevents us from being able to make certain recordings, which is why we only use the privacy screen when we consider it advisable for the aforementioned reasons. So it is possible that our flying apparatus can be observed both day and night.
Contact Report 510.
However, the fact that UFO observations are repeatedly reported around the world is that these are usually natural phenomena which can also be photographed or filmed under certain circumstances. Illusions and optical irritations are also common. Those photos and films, however, which are sensational in UFO circles, are usually deliberate fakes produced by computers. It is not uncommon for your photos to be falsified and misused for this purpose, whereby photo montages and animated films are produced. Only very few pictures show real objects, which can be interpreted as flying apparatus or as UFOs. Since the 1980s, when computer technology emerged and can be used in a private way by anyone who can handle it, there have been countless fake pictures and films concerning UFOs or unknown flying objects respectively, which circulate in UFO circles and are found to be real. Today, computer technology is so far developed that fakes can hardly or not at all be recognized. But when you took your pictures in the 1970s, these computer possibilities did not exist yet, because only years later computers were produced that could also be used in private life.
Contact Report 511.
But I am now interested in whether, since my last question regarding other extraterrestrials who do not belong to you, Playaran, or to your Federation, any other extraterrestrial flying apparatuses have flown into earthly space in the meantime?
Since we completed our surveillance technology for objects entering the Earth's space years ago, and are therefore able to locate and register even the smallest objects, there have been no entries of unearthly flying apparatuses that do not belong to us Playaran or to members of the Federation. It is also not to be assumed that there will be any more such foreign incursions in the foreseeable future. And what has happened in the last 300 years with such flights into the earthly space has found its reason in the fact, as we have clarified in the meantime, that really all extraterrestrials who came to Earth found their way to Earth by some unforeseen coincidence, or in 2 cases, by coordinate information. The fact that the way from extraterrestrials to the SOL system and finally to Earth led in some cases was either due to uncontrollable coincidences or due to coordinates received, etc. Some also came to Earth through curiosity, aberration, or by accident after they unintentionally or intentionally entered the SOL system. However, most of the entries took place because of uncontrollable coincidences, and also because the Earth was discovered. There were also flights into Earth from the Alpha Centauri area when the SOL system was approached, and of course Earth was discovered and explored. So it was usually a rare coincidence that extraterrestrials other than us, the Playaran, and our federated ones came to Earth. Only in 2 cases aliens came to Earth via the coordinates given by very distant Nacademian descendants. There were not any other strangers to the Earth other than those who came to Earth through the coordinates and uncontrollable coincidences. So the visitors were not those who flew to Earth as a special destination, with 2 exceptions. But we Playaran and our Federation and the ancient Lyrians are excluded from this, because even our very distant ancestors knew the Sol system and the Earth, and so they visited the Earth millions of years ago.
This is familiar to me, because they came to the Sol system because of the moon, whose path they followed when it blasted out of their space-time structure through a dimensional gate into our space-time structure and settled on Earth. And it is also clear to me that there is not extraterrestrial human life at every corner of space, and that extraterrestrial human beings are not to be found in every corner of the universe, as the human beings on Earth are led to believe by science fiction films. There are indeed billions of solar systems in which there are also planets, but those that carry human life, which is also highly developed and capable of space travel, are very rare in our Dern universe. That is why, as you once said, your Federation is spread out over hundreds of millions of light years in your space-time structure, because the human beings are scattered in the vast expanse of space, and it is not densely populated with humans. Often there are dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of light years between human-inhabited worlds, and also only a few of the human beings on these inhabited planets are capable of space technology. The same applies to our space-time structure, and consequently also to the fact that there are not masses of human beings on the planets, but only a few of them in the vastness of our own or any other galaxy. For this reason alone, it is crazy to claim that aliens from this or that constellation would come to Earth from this or that constellation, simply to make some nonsensical religious and sectarian speeches and conversations and to give divine advice, etc. This, apart from the absurdity of the fact that there is no evidence of such alleged contacts between aliens and the human beings of Earth, neither material nor photos and films.
Contact Report 519.
And all those Earth foreigners who came to Earth by the coincidence of the coordinates of the ancient Nocademian peoples belong to our Federation today. And they too do not maintain contact with Earth humans. The only contacts that have ever existed and continue to exist relate to us Playaran, our Federation, and you.
So that in relation to the last 300 years?
That is correct, because it is for that time that we have been making our inquiries.
But what if unknown flying objects are observed?
If they are Earth foreigners flying apparatuses, then they can only be those of us Playaran or of our federated ones. Otherwise, they are exclusively earthly unknown flying apparatuses, like secret aircraft of futuristic design, etc., as they are constructed in secret aircraft construction factories, mainly in Area 51 in the USA, but also in South America, Russia, China, and Canada.
Is this really all clear and real?
Absolutely.
This once again triggers angry cries and howls among the UFO believers, the ufologists, and the alleged contactees, which in turn makes me a snail again.
This will be so, because the deceivers, liars, swindlers, and charlatans regarding alleged contacts with Earth foreigners as well as the UFO believers in general, and especially those who boast of being experts in ufology, do not want to understand that apart from us, the Playaran and our federated ones, no other Earth foreigners come to Earth, and also that those who came here in former times found their way to Earth only by means of old coordinate records which led back to connections with old Nocademian peoples. Only such Earth foreigners and future Earth followers have come to Earth, but never any others from foreign galaxies and solar systems that did not have the coordinates handed down. So others did not reach Earth, as alleged contactors lie and claim.
This apart from the skrills and the bioorganic flying objects and the future of Earth from other dimensions, as you say. If all the many claims about contacts between the human beings of Earth and extraterrestrials were true, then Earth would be teeming with extraterrestrials.
That is correct.
Contact Report 522.
Nevertheless, it is a fact that top-secret flying apparatus is being created and tested in Area 51, not only in the area of that base, but also in other areas and even worldwide. But this is also true of other states that work on and test secret flying apparatus, which are then referred to by uninitiated populations as UFOs, and even as extraterrestrial flying objects. And it is precisely this fact that is used by all the secret bases where futuristic flying apparatuses are built, Area 51 in particular, to keep their secret products relating to all kinds of flying objects and aircraft from becoming public knowledge. The secret services involved have been stirring up the UFO hype for many decades and are doing everything they can to make people observing such flying apparatus believe that they are extraterrestrial flying objects, which are then generally called UFOs. This is also a reason for the paradox that, especially in the USA, those in charge of military and Air Force intelligence and other intelligence agencies involved in the case are denying that an extraterrestrial flying apparatus has crashed, as happened in Roswell. Of course, this also vehemently denies the secret research and machinations that are being carried out in Area 51, as well as the constructions of secret flying apparatus made there. And this did not only happen during the Cold War period, but it also applies equally to the present day. Thus, the belief of the population in the multiple existence of extraterrestrial UFOs continues to be fueled.
Contact Report 531.
Then let me ask you again about the fact that you said some time ago that you Plearan and your Federation are the only aliens who have contact on Earth, and only with me. You also said that there are not other aliens flying in and out of Earth. But somehow I can't get along with that, because you have also mentioned on several occasions that there are 3 groups of strangers on Earth besides you, who came or are coming, but who are unknown to you and with whom you cannot or do not want to come into contact. At least that is what you told me several times in private conversations. Your daughters Sim Ya-se and Quetzal have also explained the same thing. These things were not recorded in the contact reports because they were private conversations, but I think that this is why we should talk about it again. As I said before, I simply cannot deal with this matter.
The UFO and UFO contact hysteria should not be evoked again, which is why I did not speak of those strangers who have probably been in earthly space and unknown to us for a long time and with whom we also have no connections. But when I think about it now, I find that the whole thing is perhaps advisable to be mentioned in the above-mentioned respect, because apparently you too have misunderstood my statement as well as that of my daughter and of Quetzal. It is indeed the case that no new Earth foreigners known to us have come and are coming to Earth other than those who have been operating here for a long time or those who have joined or belonged to our Federation. Only in this respect my speech was intended and should have been understood in this way. But apparently I was not precise enough in my statement, which led to misunderstanding or misunderstanding. What I explained was meant then, if I am to repeat what I said and make it clearer that in recent times no new Earth foreigners have come or are coming to Earth. Thus, only those foreigners who have been approaching the Earth for a long time and who are not under our control are and remain. Excluded from my statement, therefore, were those Earth foreigners unknown to us with whom we do not or do not wish to come into contact. And as these fly in and out of earthly space, they are therefore not newcomers, but rather those who have been coming to the Earth again and again for a very long time, and who also stay in this space for a long time. These 3 foreign groups are therefore not included in my statements, nor are the future Earthlings, who form a further group and with whom we also have no connections.
Then it is also possible that sometimes not only your flying objects can be observed, but also those of the Earth foreigners unknown to you and of the future ones. You, for your part, do not let yourselves be observed as often as it used to be the case. So therefore, unless they are the secret terrestrial test objects of military form, sometimes they must be those unknown to you and the future ones who are seen.
That is correct. But if they are already Earth foreigners or the future ones, then they are not those who appear again, but only those unknown to us, as I will again state.
So they are not newcomers from the depths of space, flying in and out of Earth, but only those of whom you have spoken in each case, but who were not mentioned in your last explanations. Consequently, it follows that while it is correct that you and your Federation are the only ones known to you as Earth foreigners, and as such, visit Earth. But since those unknown to you and those to come are not known to you as Earth foreigners, you have only spoken of those extraterrestrials that you know. Thus of you Playaran and your federated ones. This misunderstanding is stupid, because this is again material for the know-it-alls, critics, and adversaries, who are too stupid to understand that just by incomplete statements and explanations, also misunderstandings can appear. Perhaps it is also our mistake if we discuss some things only privately, without writing up reports about them. It is also not uncommon for misunderstandings to arise from the fact that some of your statements and explanations are not complete. But the whole thing does not say anything about the fact that through those strangers to the Earth who are unknown to you, and through the future ones, short touches and so-called examination contacts might have taken place.
That is clear and correct. And what is to be said regarding contacts of fate and examination contacts is that some of the strangers unknown to us may indeed have touched the Earth, but we neither have any control over this nor have we been able to observe such contacts ourselves. If, in the course of time, we have spoken of possible touches respectively short contacts, then these have been related to those that have unintentionally or intentionally taken place with us Playaran or with our federated. However, we do not know and are not interested in what happened to those unknown to us and those to come.
This is a clear and unmistakable statement. But the fact of the many atmospheric phenomena and the test flights of secret military flying apparatus that have been observed in various countries but could not and still cannot be identified as a whole, and which are called UFOs, remains, doesn't it?
Of course, because this cannot be denied, so also the fact of secret test flights of futuristic flying apparatuses cannot be denied, although this is nevertheless constantly being attempted by denials.
Contact Report 533.
The difficult issue with the control device required Quetzal, Zafinat Paniak and I to create a completely new apparatus together some time ago, because the old one had been disturbed by the earthly space debris to such an extent in its function with regard to very precise recordings that a lot of data was not recorded.
Aha, and may I ask whether the size of the small control disk is still the same?
No, the dimensions of the micro device are now 6.666 millimeters and now has a storage capacity of 280,000 terabytes.
Man, that is a multiple of the old control panel.
There are also many more factors that are monitored and registered by the device, but I do not want to give any further details officially.
But what I am still interested in is to what extent the strangers on Earth, who are obviously divided into 3 groups, behave towards you, since you do not want to have any contact with them.
According to our directives, we have kept away from them until today, and will also do so in the future. Just as we shield ourselves from all earthly locating equipment and locating devices of any kind, if I may say so in such simple terms, so we also shield ourselves from the Earth foreigners. The protective shields of our flying apparatus are designed in such a way that they cannot be penetrated in any way, and therefore our aircraft cannot be located. This is also the case when we keep the screens of our flying apparatus open so that they can be seen. But that is never enough to be able to take bearings on our flying apparatus or even register them. So far, the Earth foreigners operating in the terrestrial space, who form a unit despite their tripartite division, have not been able to find a way to determine our existence, because all their technical achievements are not sufficient and are far inferior to ours. This is, of course, also true of all the terrestrial technology in this field, which is still far below that used by the aliens. But since they, like the Earth humans, know through the terrestrial media such as television, radio, newspapers and magazines, etc., that you are in contact with us because this has been so reported, you have been observed for a long time both by the Earth foreigners and by the earthly military, authorities and secret services, probably in the hope that they might thereby prove to themselves our existence and our contacts with you. They have not been able to do so to date, and they never will, because they are not capable of such a technique and are therefore not able to reconcile the discrepancy in this respect. Just as all their efforts to find out about our existence have been in vain and useless to them, so it will remain.
Then some of the unknown flying apparatuses we have observed throughout the decades above and around our center could have been from those Earth foreigners, as was also the case at my former place of residence in Hinwil and the surrounding area.
This was indeed the case several times, and if you had asked us about it, we could have given you information about it, just as we always did when our flying apparatus was being observed in the center area or elsewhere, and you asked about it.
Contact Report 534.
Here is the further question. Photons are light particles, but they are weightless. But I do not understand how it is possible to move or stop things by a very strongly bundled light, to melt metal with a laser beam, and even to propel flying objects in space. Even if the weight and mass are zero and practically cannot be determined, I think that somehow something must be present that can produce the effects in the above-mentioned respect, perhaps a mass of light and a weight of light or something like that. But everything is so small and weightless that a single photon, for example, cannot be measured in any weight and mass.
What you say is correct, of course. Explained in a simple and easy-to-understand way is the following to say about it. Every single photon is not measurable in relation to its weight and mass, at least not with earthly apparatuses. Therefore, mass and weight always result in zero. But if the photons are bundled millions of times, like with spotlights or especially with lasers or photon engines, then in their constant movement at the speed of light, a so-called moving mass becomes visible, which can be registered and also measured in terms of weight. However, about 400 million photons together make up such a tiny mass, which contains less than the smallest atomic nucleus component. Photons appearing in unimaginably enormous masses, however, which without exception are always in motion at the speed of light. And as these are generated by suns and all other photon-producing structures in the universe and are hurled out into space, the masses in motion increase to enormous weights, which can only be calculated in millions of tons.
And this, although the individual photon is weightless and massless, so to speak, but in this respect can only be measured in a very large mass. Really phenomenal.
Contact Report 541.
So now I also understand your explanation of 2001 when you said that the new control disk of 4 mm surface area and 1 mm thickness, which you stationed at several hundred kilometers altitude, has a capacity of 74 exabytes, that is 74 trillion bytes. There is a generator or something similar built into this tiny control device, as well as an observation system, a transmitter and receiver. There is also an image recording device installed, with which something can be captured on Earth extremely clearly and sharply to the centimeter, as you once said privately.
That is also correct.
Various people do not understand your statements regarding extraterrestrials, which fly in the terrestrial airspace, or not. So I want to once again come to speak about unidentified flying objects, but not about those, which are from those extraterrestrial origins about which we have already spoken several times. And what you have determined is that all these were located as a result of historical records of the Nocademian peoples to Earth. For this purpose, You have also explained that eventually these planets' peoples to whom the spacecraft belonged have joined your Federation. There are diverse UFOs observed all over the world, of which different large and small objects belong to secret terrestrial developments in various countries. But this cannot be officially proven because their existence is denied and covered up, although detected by many witnesses. Hence, that's not all that is said, because there are still also the various large and small dimension change capable flying objects from the Earth's future. All of which you have spoken of openly or privately, as well as your daughter Simya say, and Quetzal occasionally said something about this. But on that point, now to the question. For years some spectacular UFO observations have been variously made worldwide, which were also confirmed by the military, Air Force, and other airplane pilots, police units, and private individuals. However, you had said that except for those which you mentioned, no more extraterrestrial flying devices were flown into the airspace of the Earth or would fly in.
You mix something up or have misunderstood something, dear friend, because what is correct is the fact of my views regarding this, that no further unknown Earth foreigners to us Playaran fly in the earthly space. In addition, I also spoke thereof that we do not maintain any contacts with these unknown to us Earth foreigners which move in the earthly space, or that there is no possibility for us that we can get in contact with them. So if I have spoken about this, that no further Earth foreigners known to us come to the Earth, then this is referring exclusively to newly appearing Earth foreigners, not however to those whose existence here on Earth has already been known for quite some time.
Again, a misunderstanding, but now this would also be clarified. So those unknown to you are still present, whereby these also fly in and fly out. That really was totally misunderstood, both by various readers of the contact reports, as well as by me. But how does it stand with your investigations regarding contacts between Earth humans and these foreigners moving in the terrestrial airspace of whose existence you know?
As we have seen through extremely accurate investigations, no touches, that is to say, no contacts took place up until the present moment between these Earth foreigners unknown to us and any Earth humans.
It is simply maddening that misunderstandings creep in again and again, because you do not speak in detailed enough plain language if you are not specifically asked for it.
This corresponds to a mutuality, because you always answer only to direct questions, without giving further details thereof. And so, as you keep to in this regard, we adhere to this as well. This form of questions and answers is indeed also correct in principle, because thereby one does not go adrift into hardly important details.
Contact Report 544.
Such observations are not only made in England, but around the world in practically all countries, whereby, however, there is silence about it as usual. And I will say this before you ask, that all these unknown flying objects are on the one hand secret terrestrial flying apparatuses, but also on the other hand those of the future inhabitants of the Earth and of those who are unknown to us and with whom we maintain no contacts. Our own flying apparatuses, except in seldom cases, our telemetric discs, are shielded by us from sight and radar, etc., in such a way that they cannot or only extremely seldom be seen by human beings of Earth. This, however, only if in that relation certain causal foreordinations result which are under our control. It is not possible to locate us by radar, nor by other technical means. Hence, we remain also invisible for the ones foreign to the Earth who are unknown to us, who so far obviously are unable to detect our presence here on the Earth, which also applies to the future inhabitants of the Earth.
Thank you. By certain causal foreordinations, you probably mean that such a causal foreordination takes place, if it is inherent in your will that you want to be observed, as has also been the case on various occasions with FIGU members in the last decade since 1975.
Right.
Contact Report 550.
You told me on my great journey that you all have to equip your space-flying apparatus with equipment so that you do not age faster than on the homeworld. But you only mentioned this briefly, so I would like to ask what your statement at the time actually refers to. But please explain something simply so that it is also understood.
In world space, there are different physical laws than on planets. A certain radiation, which occurs on a large scale only in open world space, but not on the planets, on which it is much less effective, requires special shielding in relation to the spaceflight devices to protect the occupants. This is precisely because the strong radiation affects any biological life form much more than is the case with the low radiation of the same species on planets. This radiation, which penetrates all materials, has the property that biological life forms, when they travel through space, age much faster through it than on planets. The stronger the radiation affects a biological organism, the faster it ages. This also says that also on planets, depending on their size and mass, this radiation varies in its intensity, so the normal age limit of similar life forms is different on planets of different sizes and more or less mass. The size and mass of a planet therefore determines how strongly the radiation affects a biological organism, which means that the weaker the radiation is, the longer the organic body remains viable, whereas with strong radiation, the lifespan is reduced, which can be the case especially in space flights if they are not protected against the very strong radiation in space by a radiation-repellent shield.
Aha, that is to be understood. And since you live on worlds that have little of this radiation, you also have a long life.
Contact Report 556.
Now, however, I would like to turn the discussion once again to those UFO sightings and UFO photos, which militaries and police as well as also pilots substantiate, and which indeed in the last few decades are hundreds. About these I mean those, which have nothing to do with all of those UFO nutcases, who deceptively falsify images and films or even maintain